Hi, I'm James Ezimoha. Welcome to Africa News, where we bring you the latest updates from across the African continent. Let's dive in. Red Cross teams remove decomposing bodies from Goma prison in DR Congo. Labor migration initiatives in full swing as Kenya aims to send 1 million workers abroad annually. No thank you. White South Africans tell US President Donald Trump over resettlement offer. Renewed fighting has broken out between the M23 rebels and government forces in eastern Congo, despite a recent call for a ceasefire by regional leaders. The fighting has displaced hundreds of civilians and worsened a humanitarian crisis in the war-wrecked region. Chris Ocharimga has more from Kinshasa.
Fierce clashes erupted near the village of Ihusi in South Kivu province in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo after 3 days of calm. Local officials say the M23 rebels attacked positions of the Congolese army, sparking the fighting. The clashes come 3 days after leaders of the East African and Southern African regional blocs called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. The leaders also called for direct talks between the DRC government and the M23 rebels. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has in the past rejected talks with the rebels, who he described as a terrorist organization backed by neighboring Rwanda. Rwanda has repeatedly denied the charge, but an investigation by UN experts said about 4,000 Rwandan troops were fighting alongside the rebels in Congolese territory. The M23 rebels captured the city of Goma 2 weeks ago, leaving 3,000 people dead. Their advance to other territories has raised the risk of a wider regional conflict, with Burundian troops backing the DRC army. The rebels launched the offensive in late 2021, accusing the government of failing to honor a peace deal signed in 2013. They also say they're fighting to protect their community of ethnic Tutsis from a rival militia known as FDLR in eastern DRC. The conflict has claimed thousands of lives and forced more than 2 million people to flee their homes since last year. Chris Ochamringa, A News, Kinshasa.
At least 75 Congolese soldiers are facing a trial for deserting battle and committing crimes against civilians as M23 rebels advanced in eastern Congo. The military prosecutor says charges include murder, rape, and looting.
The soldiers, arrested after fleeing the front line, allegedly committed crimes in South Kivu. Prosecutors say civilians were shot, women assaulted, and homes looted as troops retreated without orders. The trial follows a UN report that accuses M23 fighters, government forces, and militias of mass atrocities during the latest offensive. Congo has denied accusations against its troops, but called for investigations into M23 and Rwanda. As accusations mount, senior military auditor presented soldiers who abandoned their positions without orders.
We present before your authority the Military Tribunal of Bukavu, a group of war deserters. These soldiers, classified as undisciplined, withdrew without an order from their superiors. The tribunal has determined that they made the decision to retreat without any directive from the hierarchy.
The prosecuting attorney details the crimes allegedly committed by the accused soldiers.
They killed 12 people in Amiti, Kavumu, Katana, and Kabamba, all in Cabaret territory. In Nyangezi and beyond, people are mourning the atrocities committed by those on trial. There are also victims of gunfire, as these are military personnel. Cases of rape, theft, and looting have been reported, along with violations of orders, misuse of ammunition, and association with criminals. Justice must be served.
More soldiers could be added to the trial as authorities expand their investigation. Congo has called for UN scrutiny of M23 rebels, but has yet to address allegations against its own troops.
In Goma, Red Cross teams are removing bodies from the Munzenze prison 2 weeks after deadly clashes between M23 rebels and the Congolese army led to a mass escape. Health concerns are mounting as bodies remain uncollected.
Wearing protective gear, Red Cross teams disinfected and cleared remains from Muzenze prison in Goma on Monday, following the January 27th attack when M23 rebels took control of the city. At least 2,900 people have died in the ongoing violence, according to UN sources. As authorities in South Kivu work with aid groups to contain disease and provide urgent assistance, residents near the prison say the stench is unbearable, warning of severe health risks, especially for children.
In fact, what hurts me the most are the people. Regardless of whether they are prisoners, it is truly heartbreaking. They have been there for more than 2 weeks. The smells are everywhere, everywhere. Truly, it is very heartbreaking. Because, firstly, we are exposed to diseases. And then we have children wandering around here and there in these areas. The children are truly at risk of illness.
With disease risks rising, authorities and humanitarian groups are racing to restore order in Goma as the humanitarian crisis deepens.
US President Donald Trump has offered resettlement to white South Africans, citing alleged racial persecution, but Afrikaner groups are rejecting the offer, saying they want to stay and fight for their rights at home.
Trump's executive order cuts US aid to South Africa, condemning President Cyril Ramaphosa's new land expropriation law. The law seeks to address land ownership disparities, where 3/4 of privately owned land remains in white hands. Trump's order offers refugee status to Afrikaners, but white South Africans say they will not leave.
If you haven't got any problems here, why would you want to go? Hasn't been any really bad taking over of land. The people are carrying on like normal. And, what are you going to do over there? Are they going to pay for the equipment and the seed and the land and the ground? And how are you going to pay it off? You're going to start right from scratch again? I wouldn't.
AfriForum CEO Callie Creel says Afrikaners have no intention of leaving, emphasizing their historical roots in South Africa.
We have to state categorically, we don't want to move elsewhere. We are not going to ask our children now to move to another country. The fact is, our ancestors worked hard to make sure that we as a people are formed down the southern tip of Africa. We're not going to disrespect that. We also have the interests of future generations in mind. We also have to make sure that our culture is transferred to future generations.
The South African government dismisses claims of racial persecution, insisting its policies aim to address historical inequalities. White people represent 7.2% of South Africa's population of 63 million, Statistics Agency data shows.
South Africa's MK party, led by former President Jacob Zuma, has filed for a treason complaint against Afrikaner advocacy group AfriForum. The party accuses the group of spreading misinformation that led to Donald Trump cutting U.S. aid to South Africa.
Members of MK Party, the party of South Africa's ex-president Jacob Zuma, on Monday filed a complaint in Cape Town, alleging AfriForum deliberately misled US officials about South Africa's new land expropriation law. Trump's executive order cutting financial assistance cited claims that white farmers face persecution, claims the South African government and most political parties reject. The expropriation laws allows land seizures in limited cases without compensation to address historic inequalities. However, MK parliamentary officials argues AfriForum's actions amount to treason by influencing US policy through misinformation.
Treason has been committed, we contend, by them because they are plotting against our government. First of all, they lied and said their farms have been confiscated and there have been killings, and their land was confiscated, which is not true to begin with. So based on that lies, those fraudulent misrepresentations, Trump decided to issue an executive order against South Africa. AfriForum does not seek justice or democracy. It seeks to reverse the gains of our liberation by weaponizing foreign influence against the people of South Africa. So wherever they feel that their financial interests are being threatened, you would expect Trump to act in this particular manner. But we thought maybe one is giving him too much credit. We thought at the very least he was going to use diplomatic channels and not behave like a primary school boy.
White farmers own 3/4 of South Africa's privately held land, while white people make up 8% of the population. AfriForum, which has lobbied against the law in the US, denies wrongdoing. The case now rests with the National Prosecuting Authority, which will decide whether to proceed with charges against AfriForum.
Kenya is launching one of its biggest labour migration initiatives, aiming to send 1 million workers abroad annually. The government says the plan will address unemployment and boost foreign exchange earnings, but critics warn of risks.
With over 1 million Kenyans entering the workforce yearly, but only 20% securing formal jobs, the government is pushing labour migration as a solution. Agreements with countries like Germany and Saudi Arabia aim to place skilled and unskilled workers abroad. Officials say remittances will strengthen its economy, but concerns over labour rights and brain drain remain.
We realize that we have a very important resource called the human resource, and we can be able to export our labour and make a lot of money as a result. So it's a resource for us. So it solves two problems for us. One, the high unemployment rate is able to be tackled because we have more people who are getting out of university with degrees, diplomas, engineers, doctors, nurses, journalists, than there are available positions to fill. And number two, we are able to provide the employment to overseas countries that need this labor. And in return, we are getting a lot of foreign exchange coming into our country, where we're getting remittances into a country that is very helping us in our forex and helping us stabilize our foreign exchange.
Germany is among the countries facing worker shortages. Its ambassador to Kenya says the labour gap is now affecting daily life.
The knowledge and the consciousness that the lack of skilled labour now really is a factor that affects the society as a whole is gaining more and more ground. I give you an example. We have restaurants and hotels in Germany that close on some days of the week just because they don't have any waiters or chefs or hospitality experts.
Kenyan nursing students who are already working in Germany say the language barrier remains a challenge.
In Kenya, we learn German from the start, but the dialects here feel like a completely different language. It's challenging, but over time, you get used to it.
Kenya's government says it has already facilitated 200,000 job placements abroad in the last 2 years. It now aims to send 1 million workers annually, but critics argue the country must also focus on creating jobs at home.
That's all we have for you today on African News. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.